Hey, Colabcoach here yet again to share some wise words of wisdom for the week. Week number three. Week number three of the Season of Depression series. Now, with week three, we go a little bit deeper, but I like to bring it home. But we are going to go more in depth than we did in week one and week two. So, without any further delay, the question that I have for you this week is, how do you cope with seasonal depression? How do you cope with seasonal depression? Now, if you don't know what coping is, I'm going to break it down. So, to cope with something is to make sure that you are, despite whatever's going on in your life, you're able to progress. You're able to move forward from it, and you're able to, in a sense, deal with it. While being able to do other things, such as, for example, you're able to cope with stress while you're still maintaining a successful job, or you're able to cope with situations that you have in your relationships, even though you still have those relationships there, but you're able to cope with those situations to be more progressive within the relationship and find solutions for it. Now, I love to cope. Cope is a great feeling. Cope is great, but I'll put it this way. Coping is a great stepping stone. As I said before, first thing to deal to when it comes to seasonal depression is to acknowledge it. Second thing is to talk about it. Third thing is to cope with it. We have coping skills that you can use to make the situation better. Whereas you are maybe talking about it with a friend or a therapist or a coach, and you are actually advocately doing something to progress. Maybe you're getting outside more. Maybe you're actually going to places that you feel that you love, like a warm and inviting, maybe a friend's place, maybe a family member's place, all these different things. But when it gets cold outside, now let me break it down. When it gets cold outside and you get seasonal depression, which is a trigger, and you are using those coping skills that, okay, I will go to somewhere warm. I will go and I will make sure that I'm not alone in these situations. Or maybe I'm regulating how I eat, because I know that when I get depressed, when I go through seasonal depression, I eat more or I eat less. Doing all these things are great coping skills. But for me, I feel like that's not solving the problem. That is more of helping you progress through the problem and to push yourself to do other things that are helpful for you to make sure that you are not being in a standstill and being stuck. But emotionally, like, coping skills are great physically. Trust me. Coping skills are great for temporary relief emotionally. I'll put it that way. Now, when it comes emotionally, when it comes to the emotional aspect of dealing with seasonal depression, I feel like, coping skills is great, but it's not the end all be all. Yes, you may have some skills that will help you, but are you really tackling the main problem? Like, as I said before last week, that there has to be a rooted situation that is causing the season of depression. As I said, many of these disorders, anxiety, depression, these things are secondary emotions. These are secondary responses to the first response, which is maybe something that happened to you when you were younger, maybe something that happened to you when you were older, maybe a traumatic experience, maybe a death of a family member during these seasons, and you just can't shake it. Yeah, you're able to function. Don't get me wrong. Functioning is great. Functioning is beautiful, and functioning is something that you should do. But when things get colder and you feel cold inside, or you feel numb inside, or you feel depressed inside, what are you going to do when those coping skills don't work? What are you going to do when those coping skills are not as effective anymore? Like, for me, for example, I had a situation, not necessarily with seasonal depression, but with anxiety. I had coping skills. I had things that worked effectively for me, but then those coping skills stopped working. Those coping skills didn't get me to the place where I needed to be to function, and I felt down. And that's something that could happen easily as seasonal depression. And as I said before, I have dealt with seasonal depression. I was able to get solutions, as in doing the opposites of what I was doing, staying at home alone, deciding to keep to myself, deciding not to eat. These are the things that I decided not to do. I decided to do, and that caused seasonal depression to be a permanent resident. At least I thought in my head it was going to be a permanent resident, but I was able to evict it by doing things that was not conventional with me as to making it comfortable to stay in seasonal depression. And that's the problem that a lot of people have, is that we cope with something to the point where we make something that we're dealing with comfortable, and we're trying to maneuver around that situation instead of trying to focus on the solution to overcome it completely. As I said, coping is great, but it doesn't necessarily give you the 100% satisfaction that this will not come back, or that if it does come back, I know how to stop it immediately. You're coping through something. Yes, it's great. It feels good. Okay, woof, I'm able to get off this feeling. I'm able to shake these feelings out, and I'm able to go do my job. I'm able to be a good husband, a good wife. I'm able to be a good parent. I'm able to be a good friend, good family member. But when you're alone, when you're alone, when you're not distracted with the coping skills, when you're not distracted with the people around you, when you're not distracted with the environment, and you're alone at night, that's the time when seasonal depression starts knocking. Said, hey, are you there? Because I am. And that's the moment that, including myself, like, those are the moments that we have nowhere to hide anymore. We can't hide anymore. We can't use other things to block it. We can't use other strategies that we learn to block it. We have to deal with it face to face. And that's the most difficult part. Dealing with something you've been going through face value. Nothing blocking it, no strategies that will stop it, no way to tame it. It's there full force. What are you going to do? And that's the things that we have to focus on when it comes to seasonal depression. Like, yes, trust me, keep those coping skills if it works for you. Please do. Because as I said, step 1, acknowledge. Step 2 is to talk about it. Step 3 is to get those coping skills. Step 4 is just to make sure it does not affect your life any longer, and you are able to completely overcome that situation. Step 3 and 4 are difficult. I'm not going to say they're not. 3, to be able to get coping skills is great, but don't stay there. Don't stay there. Don't stay in the coping skills area for too long, because that's just a stepping stone. A lot of people stay in coping skills and stay there to the point where those coping skills don't work anymore. That's a temporary solution. The full solution is to make sure you're able to overcome seasonal depression completely. As I said, I'm not here to tell you how to do it. I'm not a magic guru that's going to come with all the solutions, but I'm here to show you that there are other ways. There are other ways. Again, there are other ways to overcome what you've been dealing with for X amount of days, months, and even years. Simple as that. So, when I'm asking you, and I don't want you to think about this, what are the coping skills that you use to, when it comes to seasonal depression? What are those coping skills that you use for yourself for seasonal depression? Now, the coping skills that you have used, and if you don't have coping skills at all, that's important. But if you have coping skills, I want you to think about this. Coping skills is not the end of your journey. Acknowledging something is the first step. Then talking about it. Then using those coping skills to help you progress throughout the day. Yeah, coping skills are great, but they don't necessarily solve what you're trying to solve. It's not going to be the end all be all in your seasonal depression. The final step is to overcome it. Don't stay at the coping skills part, because coping skills will only help you to go by. We want you to overcome it completely. So whatever coping skills you use, please use them, but make sure that you are still advocately looking for solutions to your seasonal depression. And there are ways out there. To put it simply, what coping skills are you using for your seasonal depression? Whatever they may be, or you don't have any. One good example is to get out the environment that you get that seasonal depression in. Maybe it may be staying with people or spending time with people that you know are warm and inviting, or probably putting yourself in an environment that is allowing you to talk more about these situations. Those are coping skills. Now, I'm saying coping skills are great, but that's not the end all be all. Don't stop at coping skills. You first acknowledge the seasonal depression, you next talk about it, then you gain those coping skills to help move you along in your life when it comes to seasonal depression. But coping skills are not there to solve your problems. overcoming seasonal depression will take a lot more effort, and there are ways to do that. Make sure you are having an open dialogue to make sure that happens. Simple as that. So, if you're struggling with this, please go to my website, yourcolabcoach.com. Fill out the relationship checklist so we can see exactly what is going on with you. And also, sign up for that free 15-minute coaching session. Free isn't free, and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other, because I'm here to help you, not to just tell you what to do. Facebook, Colab Coaching. Instagram, Colab Coaching. All my series and all my videos are on YouTube, COLAB Coaching. With that being said, share this with anyone that's struggling with their coping skills and struggling to move forward past their coping skills to make sure seasonal depression is evicted completely from their lives. And please, if anyone that you know is having these issues, go ahead and message me. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.